Hey, folks, good evening and welcome to Phantoms and Monsters Radio, where the veil between the known and the unknown story of the time. All listeners to the channel, as well as first timers, and that you find tonight's subjects and reports interesting. So, tonight we plunge into the strangest corners of the unexplained. Now, this edition of Weirdest of the Weird is a deep dive into some of the most unnerving and perplexing eyewitness accounts ever submitted to me. Now, these are reports that defy category, where the veil between realities grows thin and the bizarre becomes undeniable. We'll explore encounters involving Ouija board doorways to things much darker than expected, and bizarre humanoids that appear out of nowhere only to vanish into thin air. Witnesses have shared stories of unsettling messages, unexplained voices, and physical manifestations that have followed them home long after the scene. We'll consider reports from individuals who believe they've experienced alien abductions or discovered implants beneath their skin, objects that leave no clear medical explanation and often coincided with long-lost memories and intense trauma. Some of these cases include possible surveillance, missing time, and that still remain unsolved. And of course, no weirdest of the weird would be complete without cryptids and UAP encounters, often occurring in tandem. From upright walking canines to glowing craft hovering in eerie silence, these dual sightings suggest that our world may be far stranger and more connected than we've been led to believe. So steady your nerves, prepare for a series of raw, unfiltered eyewitness encounters that challenge the boundaries of belief. These are not just isolated experiences, they're pieces of a larger puzzle. And tonight, we're going to examine them together. But before I mention that this channel is made possible by you clicking on the subscribe and like buttons and by sharing our programming. If you're watching us on YouTube, super chat and super thanks donations are appreciated. You can click the dollar icon located below the chat box. Other donation links are also shown in the description. Your comments and consideration are always welcome. Tell me which accounts you found interesting in the presentation or suggestions for upcoming shows. I want to thank our chat, Thomas and Mike, as well as Kevin and Mary at ESP. So, this first encounter, the witness states, it was a fall night. I live in Des Moines, Iowa. I went to sleep, waking up around 2 a.m. as I had read the kitchen clock. Something was off. It didn't feel right, so I got up to check the house. I, being a single mother with a son at the time, was concerned when I switched on the kitchen light. I looked at all the doors. They were locked. I could need to check, but no need to check. But to my horror, the door handle turned. I saw the knob turning. I was petrified, to say the least. The lock was undone right in front of my eyes. The door to the outside of the lounge room was open, and the door to the garage was now open. I walked over and checked the glazed security door. Still locked. Like the internal wooden doors opened and unlocked right in front of my eyes. I walked over and locked them, closing the door. I knew I had witnessed the abnormal. I was scared to sleep, but I did fall asleep. Now, in the morning, I found. So I went to the bathroom and pulled out with my fingers a strange bit of tissue, an organic living animal. I don't know what it was. I put it in the drain. Then my son walks into the bathroom, and to this day, it still makes me cry. He said, "Mom, I have something in my mouth." I was shocked to put my fingers in his mouth and find a replica between his back teeth and inner cheek. I took it out, and because I was next to the sink to the bathroom, it went. What happened that night? What happened to me and my son? The horror of the unknown. I speak the truth, yet I live in fear of the horror I witnessed before my eyes. What was that in my boy's mouth and mine? I only pray that my son was not harmed by something. No one believes that I speak the truth. I know what I witnessed. What I touched and what I discarded was not natural. Now, it seems to me that this was possibly an abduction scenario. These are rarely singular. Sometimes entire families over several generations repeated abductions. Now, I haven't heard back from her, and I don't know how long. I don't think she's had another encounter, but then again, who knows? I don't know what is really. So the next witness states, "Hello, I'd like to share some of my strange experience that occurred in my small hometown, which was Chickasha, Luzerne County. Maybe you can shed some light on what's been going on. Ever since I was a young child, I've been interested in the otherworldly. My sister would tell me I would shut my parents and siblings out. She said I never talked too much to anyone, to the point where I had to. She said, not related to me. She explained that I drew constantly, drawing the night sky. She said it got to the point where I drew what looked like tall gray aliens, some shorter and some in different colors. I can't remember much of my childhood, but when moving into a different house, I found a notebook that contained some of the drawings depicting exactly what my sister was talking about: aliens, aircraft, and portraits of the stars. I also had strange dreams without a visual texture, but with the feeling of fear. And what I can as intense gravitational, much like those spinning rides at amusement parks that spin and keep you against the wall with centrifugal force, but much more powerful. Fast forward years later, as a teenager, I don't take as much interest. I'm more focused on girls' school and other social gatherings. But strange dreams, this time with more visual stimuli. Dreams of myself standing on the front lawn. The sky is dark with an orange tint. Triangular craft, many as far as the eye can see. The lawn where a long black or jet black being, tall, ear like eyes. I didn't feel any fear as it began to palms extended towards my face in the same way a construction worker motions cars to stop. After that, I woke up confused because of the realism I had just experienced in that dream. This dream reoccurred, never getting any further than the being raising its hand. I had many other dreams with different themes, but all relating back to them. Where they are, a wild imagination, I don't know. When I was 16, I saw something very strange. It was around 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. in July around Independence Day. I was riding my bike to my high school a mile away from my house out of boredom and not wanting to be around my intoxicated family members. A quarter mile away from my house, a four-way intersection is where I saw it. It seemed to come out of nowhere, and it was right above me at the height of about 200 feet. Glowing red-orange ball around the size of what I explained, the sky, and you see from our point of view on Earth, and copied and pasted it right above my head. It was bright, but not to the point where it hurt my eyes. It just hovered there for a long time while I blankly stared at it for some time. I'm not sure how long I stood there, still calm, almost hypnotized at whatever it was. Before I knew it, it began to slowly turn and make its way down the road. It finally hit me that I just saw this. I put my foot on the pedal of my bike, tried to pedal it. It started to pick up speed and elevation and just zoomed away at staggering speeds. It was almost like it blinked out of existence. I went back home and told her later I noticed more lights in the sky around my house. Some are exactly like the glowing orb, but at further distances. Some strobe an array of colors. Now I am aware of what jets, commercial airplanes, drones, and other known air vehicles' exterior night lights look like, and none of these orbs are like it. None of these orbs look like that. They perform maneuvers that aren't at all typical of any known craft. Their speed and quick turns were amazing. Since then, I watch in the skies, but strange things still happen. Such as at a night while I was at home alone in the January of last year. I was in my living room, began to get an uneasy feeling. I felt a vibration reverberating throughout the house, originating from something outside. It was a quick pulsation of low-tone vibrations that I could hear from the outside, but felt in my body and in my head. It struck a raw feeling of fear into me, making me stay there on the couch. I wanted to go outside to see what it was, but the fear kept me back a minute or less, but felt like an hour. Explain these things. I'm an open book, so I will appreciate any input you have. There's much I can say to him. He's experienced as much as a lot of other people do, and that's why it's the unexplained. So who knows? Now, this next witness states, on October 15, 2021, in the early morning, I live in the Chicago suburb of Tinley Park. I live a few houses away from the Chicago Mothman sighting that the dog walker reported to you in 2017. I was sleeping, and something woke me up for a second. I tried to go right back to sleep, but my right hand was hurting. It started to hurt increasingly until it hurt severely. I sat up and looked at my hand under the phone light. What I saw made me say, no, no, no. There was a pencil eraser-sized incision in my middle of my palm. The skin wasn't removed. There was still a small, like a point of a pencil-sized piece of skin attached to my hand. It had an orange liquid around the incision and a shiny liquid, like liquid Band-Aid, shiny glass-like clear liquid all over it, about the size of a dime. I couldn't believe what I saw. I have an overwhelming urge to go back to sleep, but I couldn't. I had to look at it again. I didn't want to look at it again, but I looked at it again and I knew it was not normal. I knew this was serious and real. I tried to wake up my boyfriend. I was smacking his shoulder. He said, "Go back to sleep. There's nothing wrong with you." He would not look at my hand. All I wanted to do was go back to sleep. I looked at it for a third time and just shook my head and said, "This is nuts. This is crazy. The cat must have done that." I lay back down and just would not believe what I was seeing. The overwhelming urge to go back to sleep prevailed. Why didn't I take a photo? Why didn't I wake anyone else up? Why do I touch it? I don't know. It was unbelievable. I woke up the next morning not thinking of it at all, not remembering anything, until my boyfriend woke up and he said, "Oh, yeah," sarcastically, "what happened to the hole in your hand?" Suddenly, I remembered it all, and I looked at my hand immediately. Not a trace of it was there. I know what I saw, and I don't think there has been a day since then that I don't think about it, worry about it, and am freaked out about it. I've tried telling a few close friends and family. They don't even want to hear it. They tell me it didn't happen. I know what happened. I know what I saw, and I know it was real. It was a perfectly surgical, perfect incision with a strange fluid. I want to know what happened to me. If this has happened to anyone else. In finishing, what was was I not supposed to see that? So in this next account, the witness tells me, "I am a 58-year-old professional woman of color who has had visitations since I was a child. I know what happened to me, and I only want to discuss my events for research purposes. I recently read your book, Alien Disclosure Experience Exposed Reality." Wow, very interesting reports. "The first incident happened at night in 1986. It was still a vivid memory of waking up on an examination table with several aliens at different heights around me under a bright light. Now, at first, I didn't feel afraid, even though knew it was not a home and believed it was on a spacecraft. I thought I had been there several times before. They spoke to each other and me through thought. The next thing I remember, I was still on or near the table, but I felt very sad and was crying. I don't know why. When I woke up in the morning and went to work, I felt uneasy and nervous, which is not my nature. I was casually discussing the incident with a coworker to further calm myself down when another employee who had come in started listening to what I was saying. Suddenly, she became very excited and said that she was there also and saw me on the exam table. It freaked us all out, and we stopped talking about it. Now, I was a deputy director at this agency, and I remember the name of the coworker who also saw me. Somehow I believe that the second incident is connected to the first one I described. I have several visitation memories from that location as an adult. The one I will discuss happened in 1993. I woke up in the morning, and there was a stillness in the room that made me feel uneasy. I had two dogs in the room with me, which was strange. I got off the bed, and everything that had happened to me that night before came back, and I woke up to see very alien like people entering my bedroom. I was not afraid at first because the first person who entered the bedroom was my GP doctor, whom I saw regularly. The second he appeared to come in, he stepped to the side, and there were several aliens who had also entered. I immediately became scared, and the next thing I remember was being pushed up against the wall in my room, and one of them was trying to look for something through my private area. My doctor seemed to be gone as I was calling out for him, but the other aliens were on my left side and were talking calmly and telepathically to each other. There were about 4 or 5 of them in the room, and by their voices, some were female. They all seemed to be some type of doctor or medical staff and wore white clothes. The ones on the side were about 6 foot, very slender and almost angelic looking, with minor interest in me. There is more graphic detail to this, but for the sake of space and in the end, the alien found what he was looking for and removed it. I blacked out and then woke up, as stated earlier. I have no further incidents since then. Thank you. And that's all I've ever heard from this witness. I don't, no doubt, an abduction, but what did they remove? What were they looking for? This next account, the witness tells me, hello. On July 4th, 2003, in Earlham p.m., my dad and I were sitting on the roof of our house watching fireworks when the porch light dimmed and a sort of whining noise started. Our dog started barking and howling. I looked around the sky and I saw nothing. The cows all started mooing at the same time. I heard a high-pitched scream, and out of the woods across the road, we saw a huge ape-like. It saw us and began running south very fast. Then I looked to the east, and I saw it. A large cube was just floating towards where the ape had fled. It was very dark and dull on the sides and very bright on the bottom. It looked almost like a window. It was glowing yellow and pulsating. I heard the radio become very static-like and change stations. Then the needle in my compass began following the tube. The object hovered for about a minute or so. It was about 200 yards away, near the cube, and vanished, as if it walked into the object. The cube ascended into the dark sky and disappeared as it swiftly traveled towards the southern horizon. I wish we had not watched this. I would have never believed it, but who knows what happened. Then I got a hold of the witness, and I corresponded with the witness, who told me that he believed the ape-like creature was about 12 to 15 feet in height. I asked if he thought it might have been a Bigfoot. He stated that he wasn't sure. He later told me that his father, who was 42 years old at the time of the incident, was never right after witnessing the passed away only a month afterwards. Now, we didn't get into detail as to how he passed away, but that does seem a bit strange. As you hear the fireworks in the back. This next witness states, every Wednesday, after I drop my son off at school, I'll take a ride up the mountains to this restaurant on my bike. It's about a half-hour ride. I live in Western Maryland. One Wednesday morning, I dropped him off at 8 o'clock. It's about a 30-mile ride up to this restaurant. I get there, I sit down and order my breakfast. I always get breakfast there, and it says, we're not serving breakfast anymore. I said, what do you mean? Did you guys stop serving breakfast altogether? She said, no, we still serve it, but we stop at 10:30. And I said, well, it can't be no more than 9 o'clock or 8:30. I pulled out my cell phone, and it's a little after 11:30. And I totally started thinking, did I drop my son off late for school? Then I said, nah. I went outside, and I was just kind of scratching my head, getting ready to head back down, trying to make sure I didn't drop my son off late. I had this burning sensation in the back of my neck, and when I got back home, I looked in the mirror, and I saw it. It looked like a little burn. A few weeks later, it healed, but it feels like there's a small BB inside there or something. And it appears I've lost 3 hours. Picking up my son at school and asked him, and he said, no, you dropped me off the right time. I was there the entire day. He still doesn't understand what happened. This next account, the witness states, greetings. The incident I'm about to relate to you happened some 50 years ago. I visited my grandparents who lived in an old farmhouse in central Pennsylvania. My cousin Dee, 1 year younger, was there as well. We rose super early each morning, as was the practice when visiting there. My grandmas, those who did not get out of the house before breakfast, got a chore list that would take all morning. Dave and I were determined to avoid that list. The house stood on top of a hill and was some distance from the road, with a long drive leading up to the car park area. The ground on either side of the driveway could be best classified as unintended meadow with copse out. From the car park in front of the house, you look down and out toward the road some 500 yards away. This is where Dave and I stood that morning. There was a small stand of pine trees about halfway down the hill. These were young trees, not more than 9 feet tall. We knew these trees well, as they impeded every hill roll or sled run we ever attempted down that slope. Today, however, we never even got to start the downhill fun. "What the hell is that?" one of us asked. "Beats the hell out of me," the other answered. Under the nearest pine tree, there was a figure. It appeared to be made of golden metal, which glittered in the sunlight. It was about 3 feet tall, as best as we could determine from our uphill angle. From the shoulders down, it seemed to be wrapped or swaddled in golden cloth. This extended the entire length of the creature, making it look as though it was a form-fitted sleeping bag. On its head was a helmet or headdress, also gold. When we first saw it, it was facing to our left, so we were looking at its golden left profile. The sight of this thing made us both freeze in place, barely breathing. We stared down at it for a time-distorted period. A minute? Don't know. Suddenly, the thing changed its head. It did not turn its head. It had been looking straight ahead at the spot somewhere to our left. Then it looked directly at us. The head did not move through all the intermediate positions. The transformation was instant. But then, a wave of the two of us. I have never since felt anything so intensely alien and malignant. It hated. Neither of us was the most athletic of kids. We burst into the kitchen, babbling and down on the hill. It took us a good. There really would be something worth seeing if he went out there with us, and of course, there wasn't. Nothing on the ground, nothing near the tree, but that image of the golden boy, nastiness in his glaze, that will never go away. I use the term golden boy as that is how the family story has evolved, but it was no boy. It was humanoid as best as the distance would reveal, but the sense of malice and dread made it impossible to stick around for more details. And I was 9 or 10 at the time, in my defense. In 50 years since, I've never heard or read of a similar encounter. Has the golden boy ever crossed your path or anybody else's? The house no longer has the white fence that separates the yard from the car park. There are a lot more trees now, so I had to guess at the approximate spot, and the fact that the downward slope of the land isn't evident makes guessing a bit harder, but that is close. My grandparents only rented there, and I have no idea who owns the property now. But I wonder if they took down the fence because scared kids fell over it too often. I love your site and your work that you do. Thank you. Another strange central Pennsylvania account. We have no idea what it was. Now, this next one. Most of the time, when someone tells stories about Ouija boards, it's usually when something terrible happens, like a demon possessing a friend or a ghost haunting someone's home. Yet, my story is a bit different. I'll start by saying that this happened when I was in the 9th grade. My friend received a Ouija board for her birthday from her cousin, and my friends and I were eager to play. We told our friend, whom I'll call Caitlin for the sake of the story, to wait until we all got together to use the board. Our parents drove us to her house on a Friday after school so we could hang out and spend the night. None of us had informed them about what we were planning to do since we all came from strict religious backgrounds. We had dinner and swam in her pool, then pulled out the rules to the board and set everything up. The door was shut. The ceiling fan was turning on full speed to drown out our questions, and we were all excited about what we were about to try. There were 4 of us, including Caitlin. All of these are fake names, by the way. Caitlin, Jackie, and Beth. We sat in the tight circle around the board, and we all nervously placed our hands on the planchette. Beth greeted the spirit who owned the board as soon as we touched it, and we all started giggling. None of us believed in spirits, so we weren't too concerned about the planchette moving or anything in the room breaking. Well, the first question inquired whether anyone was there. The planchette didn't move, and again, my friends and I burst out laughing, not removing our hands from the planchette. Caitlin then asked the question, "What is your name?" Suddenly, the planchette started sliding across the board. We were all freaked out, and Jackie even screamed. Caitlin began asking who was moving the piece. When no one admitted it, she got a bit angry and stared at the planchette with disgust on her face. Martha, Martha. Then Banks, Banks, Martha Banks. Suddenly, we turned to see Caitlin gasp. A horrified expression plastered on her face. Beth laughed and asked how we came up with a name so quickly, following up with the question, "How old are you?" 61. Jackie and I noticed that Caitlin had started to cry. Silently, but close to sobbing, big tears rolling down her face. "How are you today?" she asked through her tears. Beth had noticed Caitlin's sadness as well. I asked her what was going so upset, but she didn't respond. Good. Good. Caitlin chuckled a bit, but then asked if heaven was nice. All 4 of us stared intently at the board, not moving our hands from the pieces. The planchette slowly spelled out ITS. It's BEAUTIFUL. It's beautiful. Caitlin quickly said goodbye without any of our consent before pulling her hands away from the piece and dragging ours with her. The rest of the night, she didn't mention the incident, no matter how many times we inquired. Years later, when I was in the 12th grade, I called her up after not speaking to her for a while. I remained friends with Beth, and I had lost touch with Jackie. I still talked to Caitlin, but not as often as I used to. She had moved away and wasn't available to talk too much, so I finally got her attention one day and brought up the night we played the Ouija board, or her Ouija board, asking if she still had it. She told me that she asked her mom to sell space in her storage closet. Yet Caitlin sent another text that made me very curious. "Oh, wait, was that the day I got super upset?" I texted back to confirm her question, asked her why she was so sad. I now know that Martha Banks was her grandmother, who had a stroke at 53, another at 57, and the last one at 61, which ultimately took her life in a few days. I understand this is a very sensitive subject, but Caitlin said she was almost certain it was her grandmother. One reason she believed this was that a couple days after we all came over, she walked into the kitchen to get a snack and noticed a picture that had fallen in the living room. When she went to pick it up, she saw that all the pictures originally in the room were still there, and the picture didn't have a frame. She told me that the moment she picked up the picture, tears streamed down her face. The picture was of her and her grandmother when she was a baby. She had never seen it before. This memory always makes me lean towards Ouija boards when someone says that you shouldn't play with them. Of course, there are dangers, but taking a risk can allow you to learn a lot. And in the memory, this memory for Caitlin, I believe will help her remember her grandmother's safe and the happy days while she was alive. So, folks, that's the last account. You got any questions? Put them up there, all caps, please. And Kevin will post them for me to answer or talk about. Nothing? You can talk about anything. It doesn't have to be necessarily about what I talked about because there's so many different subjects there. Oh, and by the way, I want to thank you all for those who showed up on Wednesday night. I'd like to do many more of those as we had before, and I hope a lot more of you take advantage of it and join the channel. It's only $2.99 a month, and we can have a larger discussion as we go along. Dagnammit, do you think the black-eyed kids phenomena are devils, vampires, or aliens? Something about giving them permission to let them in your house or vehicle is baffling. I think that it has something to do with some type of possession, but as to what the possessor or energy is, I have no idea. A lot of people do say, they're alien beings. When I wrote Alien Disclosure, I did not talk about black-eyed kids because I didn't know what they were really connected with alien beings or otherworldly beings at all. But yeah, I don't know what, but I think just by the way they act and the way they respond and need permission and stuff, I think it is a possession thing. But as to where it comes from, I don't know. Next question. Paranormalism Net. Have weird and unusual cryptids been seen with other cryptids or in areas where sightings are common? I've had a few occasional sightings of cryptids with possible other cryptids. It seems to be more spirit phenomena, not necessarily another cryptid. The fact that there have been situations where possibly they're involved with alien beings and possibly UFOs or UAPs. There's not a whole lot of them. Here in Pennsylvania, there have been two very well-known encounters like that. So it does happen on occasion. But as far as two cryptids being seen at the same place, that is unusual. Dagnammit. Do you know why Mr. Black from Beyond Creepy Channel obscures out his face? Well, Mr. Black is a friend of mine. We've been working for years. He and I share research together. He just prefers not to be seen. I mean, that's just the way it is. He's got a very popular channel. I've asked him, how do you get so many viewers on there? And he says he can't explain it. I don't know. I mean, but I guess it has a lot to do with the mystique as far as him pixeling out his face. But he does research his subjects very deeply. So I don't know. But no, I don't know why he does it. But he likes to remain anonymous. Anything else, folks? Okay. Well, I want to thank each and all of you for watching and chatting. And if you donated, it's truly appreciated. Your support is what makes this possible. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you have a sighting report that you'd like to be considered for this personal report show, or even when I get the blog going back up on Phantoms and Monsters, feel free to forward it to me at my email at lonstrickler@phantomsandmonsters.com. Again, I want to mention that the website, the build is going very well. I approved the homepage just the other day. There's going to be a lot of bells and whistles there. Phantoms and Monsters Radio can be accessed from there as well. There are going to be a few other things. I'm thinking about, and I'm thinking about even doing this on YouTube to publish reports about certain phenomena or certain unexplained or cryptids and such, and making the PDFs available for download with no cost. Though I will accept donations if persons feel to do that. Anyway, thanks again. And until we meet again, stay healthy and safe. I'll talk to you next Friday. Good night and have a great weekend.